Are you wondering how to buy a house in Seattle, Washington? This is a special challenge if you're coming in from out of state. Here at this channel, we focus on helping buyers like you who are relocating to the Seattle area really learn what's involved in finding and buying the right house that you can afford and that you're going to love for years to come. So let's go. So, buying a house in the Seattle, Washington area can seem like a big challenge for people, especially once they get some sticker shock when they see our prices. But this channel and this video are focused on making that process easier for you. My name is Emily Cressy. I'm a licensed real estate agent here in the Seattle area, and I love helping people who are buying their first home, relocating to the area, kind of thinking about all of those issues that come into play. I actually homeschooled my kids for a number of years. There's that inner teacher in me that just wants to help. So if you feel like you need a little extra help getting pointed in the right direction, you're absolutely in the right place. Now, here in Seattle, I have been watching the real estate markets from an especially young age. My parents actually bought an apartment complex when I was a baby. They sold it when I was a baby, and they never got back into the market because, according to my dad, he always felt like the market was in a bubble, meaning nothing really cash flowed. It seemed like things were overpriced. And this trap catches a lot of people off guard because they feel like the Seattle market is overpriced. What can I do? I can't buy anything. Let's wait for the market to come back down. But unlike a lot of other places like Los Angeles, prices go up and down like a roller coaster. The Midwest, they stay flat like the prairie. Here in Seattle, they kind of go up, they level off, they kind of go up again. And we're coming off of a hard couple of years where people had employment problems, had to stay home, weren't able to do their usual stuff. And at the end of that time, and during that time, they had the opportunity, I guess, to stay home and look at real estate online because we had a huge surge in pricing. We would have prices go up 20% in 1 year. And some people I know, some of my clients were able to buy and sell a property very quickly and make a profit. However, other clients did not have such good luck, especially if they bought a condo, let's say in downtown Seattle, where nobody wanted to live anymore because prices had, like employment had thinned out. People wanted to stay at home in a larger place than a little tiny condo. And there was no longer a lot of value in being close to work if you weren't going into work in the first place. So real estate does not always go up, and I don't want to give you that impression. However, the Seattle real estate market has a pretty strong track record of going up. Just to give you another example, last year, like I said, was so hot. The market went up 20%. We were setting all kinds of records. And then the interest rate started getting cranked up and the market came right back down again, but within a year. So it went up 20% and it came down 20% within a year. The data that we were looking at the end of the year for home prices was very similar to the data that we were looking at 12 months prior. And now we're coming into spring. We're seeing housing prices start to shoot up again. I looked at several homes for sale over the weekend that got multiple offers that escalated their price 100,000 over asking. So it can be very frustrating and very difficult for buyers. And a lot of times they say, hey, too rich for my blood, I don't want to participate. But what ends up happening is then they don't buy anything. They sit on the sidelines. I talked with a realtor today he said he had been working with the same buyers for 7 years. And they always tapped out and felt like the market was too high. They were going to wait for it to come back down. And then probably when the market was soft, they said, oh, the market is soft. The market's going down. I don't want to buy yet. And then the market would go back up and it was just a cycle. So I want to clue you into the psychology because I think stocks and crypto and real estate investing, we have all of this like buy low, sell high type of mentality. And when we're talking about, and I'm a real estate investor too, okay, don't get me wrong. I totally vibe on making lots of money and following, the trends to the extent that you can. I'm just cautioning you that in Seattle, in the last 40 years, there haven't been as many buying opportunities as one might hope. And even if prices do come down, it's still perhaps part of a 7-year trend. You don't know where the bottom is. It's difficult to time the market in any situation, but I think especially in real estate. So I encourage people to take a look at real estate for the long term. If you're planning on staying in there for 5 years or more, chances are you should be doing very well. If you don't think you can commit to owning the property for at least 5 years, then I might discourage you from buying it at all. There's a lot of risk in having a property that you need to sell in a short period of time that may not have gone up enough to pay for all the costs of that sale. So let's do your homework. Let's have a conversation about that. If you want more information, I'm always happy to talk to you. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about this subject, but I really want to keep you safe and I want you to have a home you love. And I would love for you to make money on your property. And it seems like for a lot of people who have lived in this area long term, my parents still live in their house. I'm pointing to it because they live next door to me. They bought their house in the 1970s for like $40,000. And, it's appreciated to well over $1 million now. So that's the type of thing that I want you to be thinking about, sort of that long-term gain, keeping up with inflation, paying off your mortgage, and having something slow and steady rather than, I'm going to buy this and it's going to go up like a fireball, like a rocket, and then it's going to be worth, twice as much as I paid for it next year. That should not be your outlook. That's probably unrealistic. But that is the challenge for you then as a buyer, because that just happened to everybody's homes and now they look expensive and the same thing just keeps happening. So a lot about being a first-time home buyer in Seattle is just getting your foot in the door. You have to start somewhere, and I want you to start with something that you can afford, that you'll be comfortable with, and that will meet many of your needs long-term. So if you like Venn diagrams like I do, those overlapping circle charts, there are 3 buckets, 3 categories, 3 levers we can pull when it comes to looking at housing and finding the right price, the right place for you. And one of those is price. So looking at the price of your home. And for most people, that's fairly fixed. I make this much money, so I can afford this much house. You might be getting a raise if you're moving to Seattle. You're negotiating for a higher salary, some stock benefits, and that type of thing. It sounds great when you're coming from Indiana, but make sure that you look at that in comparison to the values of the types of properties that you'd be interested in, so you can get an idea of how far that money will go in the Seattle housing market. As a rule of thumb, you don't want to spend more than about 1/3 of your income on housing. So if you're having to go up to 40%, that's not unusual. You may still be able to get a loan, but start to use caution because that can start to feel like a squeeze. The good news is that as your salary goes up over time, as inflation goes up, that squeezing payment will be easier and easier to handle, assuming that your income is going in the right direction. Take a look at price. If you need to, talk to a mortgage broker. That's what I usually do for folks that have not connected with a mortgage broker and are thinking about buying a house. I have people that I work with who I love, that I really recommend, and I can get you in touch with them so that they can go through kind of giving you an idea of what you can afford and what your monthly payments would look like. So price, that's the first circle. The second thing that you can really handle is the location of the home. So do I want to live in walking distance from work? Do I want to live in a bike ride distance from work? Do I need to live in driving distance? Am I planning to take the light rail? How far out from your places of employment do you want to live? Most people like to live near 3 things. So if you draw a little dot on the map where you work, a little dot on the map where your family lives, if you have any friends or family in the area, and a little dot on the map on where you like to play. Do you like to go downtown to see theater? Do you like to go out into the mountains to go hiking? If you draw those things as 3 little dots on the map, that should give you a pretty good area of your goal, an idea of your goal area for where you want to live. And if you could live inside of that little triangle, you'd probably be all set. You might need to live outside of it too. Historically speaking, the closer to the city center we were, either Seattle or Bellevue, the closer to the city center, the more expensive. And then as we go out from the city, things tend to get a little bit cheaper. And that's because the commute is shorter the closer you are, and commute and traffic is a really big deal here. There are, however, of course, luxury neighborhoods scattered all over, but largely along the water. So if you look at Seattle, it's kind of like a narrow rectangle with a freeway going through the middle. So typically, the further away you get from the freeway, the more expensive the property will be, with the most expensive homes being those waterfront and water view homes on Puget Sound and Lake Washington. Similar concept in Bellevue. So look for premium neighborhoods and then you can work out from there. So that's the location. And then the third thing that really I think is the biggest variable, it's the one where people flow the most in different directions, is the type of house that they're looking for. So a lot of people will come to me with a punch list. I need a fenced yard for my dog. I don't like to walk down too many stairs. I'd like to have a big pantry. I'd like to have a garage for my car. They have some sort of a shopping list or an idea in mind of what they think the ideal home for them will include. Maybe a condo, a townhouse, or a single family home. And what I find, and what I found for myself when I was buying my own home, is that a lot of times the house that they end up with does not very strongly resemble that initial list, because we found that for the money that we're willing to spend in the locations that we like best, we have to be a little bit more flexible in the type of home that we like. And sometimes, you don't know you like it until you've tried it. So typically, I like to start people looking pretty broadly at some of the different neighborhoods that I think that they'll like, and kind of get a feel for what your money will buy in these different locations, because it's just so interesting how something can catch your eye. I had people looking at condos in Bellevue, for example, and then they were looking at historic homes in West Seattle, and now they're looking at like $1 million remodel homes in a different part of town. So I think that's good. I think it's good to play around with it. Go out and look at the properties, either while you're here, if you've moved here, or by video, the best way you can to really get a vibe for the neighborhood and the home that you're most interested in. So take a look at that as the third spoke on the wheel, the third Venn diagram circle, and really focus in on being playful, being open, and keeping that variable flexible. Okay, so now we've kind of talked conceptually about what's involved in buying a home. Let's talk about the logistics. So if you are relocating from out of town, which a lot of my folks are who I work with that I meet through this wonderful YouTube channel, then you're going to want to figure out how you would like to tour homes. Pretty much always we start by looking online, and that's fun and easy, and you can kind of click through and heart things, and that's great. At some point, we have to switch from that sort of dreaming phase to the action phase, the logistics. So there are a couple things that you can do. Number one, I can do a video tour for you. If you're not going to be able to come to town at all, if you're living in Japan right now and you just can't travel, then I will go out with my video camera and I will do tours for you. You can FaceTime, we could talk about it. I've had clients who have had to do that and buy properties completely sight unseen. So that's an option for sure, although it feels a little nervous-y to me. When the first time the person sees the house, I'm like, I hope you like it because you just bought it. But it's certainly doable. And that often works well if you're going to live there for a while and then turn it into an investment or something. It's not necessarily your forever home. The next option would be to travel to the area. So I have a lot of folks coming from like Oregon and California who it's easy for them to get a quick flight or drive up to town and be here for a weekend, a frequent weekend, be here for a week. I have people come down from Canada to like BC, and they'll just say, hey, we're here for the weekend. We want to drive around and look at 10 or 20 different homes. That's kind of a lot. I say, probably 6 to 8 per day is going to be your maximum before your eyes cross and you get really exhausted and cranky. So we try to pare that down, spend half a day, give people some time off to decompress. And for some people, they can do that for 2 or 3 weekends and find a house pretty easily that way. Other people need more time. I myself am a very slow decision maker, so I'm sympathetic to people who feel that they need a lot of time. In practice, I find that once buyers have spent time looking at about 10 homes, they have a very good idea of what a good deal looks like, how much their money can buy. And so when they are educated by having seen 10, then they're ready to make a quick decision when the right home comes along. So whether you can get that done in a weekend or you need more time, a lot of people will also come and rent like an Airbnb or like a short stay hotel or something like that, so that they can be looking and getting to know the area a little bit, driving out on their own to see some of these things, and also touring homes. So, those are three different options for actually putting the pedal to the metal and switching from dreaming to doing on the finding the homes. The next phase is really writing an offer, which might sound simple, like Emily prepares the paperwork and I click on it and it's done. But I like to go through the paperwork with you so that you really understand the process of, how much earnest money do you need to put down? What is a property inspection? What are your escape clauses, if any, for getting out of the contract if you change your mind or can't close, and those types of things. So we'll have a legal review of the paperwork together. I guess I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. It's probably not a legal review. I will review the paperwork with you, make sure that you understand what it says if you are so inclined. I know there's a portion of the people who couldn't care less, but as an attorney's daughter, I have learned not to sign things that I don't understand and haven't read. Though, because it's kind of a lot of stuff, I like to make sure that we've gone through it together. So that's one thing. And depending on how competitive the market is, we may not get the first house that we make an offer on. We are starting to see again this year homes selling for over asking price in some cases, and some are sitting on the market for weeks and months. So depending on what you're looking for in the particular situation, it's a little bit lower stress to go like for